All right, today we're putting on our detective hats to solve a centuries-old intellectual mystery, one that comes straight from the pages of the Talmud. We're going to untangle this really fascinating legal puzzle that's all about ancient rituals, hidden contradictions, and just this relentless pursuit of pure logic. So let's get this investigation started.
So first, let's talk about the stakes here. Picture a sacred offering taking place in the ancient temple in Jerusalem. Everything, and I mean everything, has to be perfect. But what if the priest who's performing the ritual has the wrong thought? Could just one single improper intention completely ruin the whole ceremony? The answer is, oh yeah, absolutely. And that right there is where our mystery begins.
Okay, so to crack this case, we've got to understand the rules of the game. You see, in the world of ancient Jewish law, what a priest was thinking during one of these offering rituals, it was a huge deal. The wrong thought could have some really serious consequences. But, and this is important, not all wrong thoughts were created equal. The most severe crime of intention has a special name, Piggul. Now, Piggul happens when the priest intends to eat the sacred meat after its officially designated time. This one, very specific thought, doesn't just invalidate the offering. It also carries a severe spiritual penalty called karet for anyone who eats it. And trust me, that is a very big deal. Now, here's where it gets really specific, and this is the crucial distinction. If a priest thinks about eating the offering in the wrong place, like say outside the temple courtyard, the offering is just disqualified. No biggie, relatively speaking. But if he intends to eat it at the wrong time, tomorrow, for instance, that's when it becomes Piggul, with that super severe penalty. This difference between place and time, that is the key to our entire case. Okay, so with those rules in our back pocket, let's head to the scene of the crime. The ancient text of the Mishnah. It presents us with this very specific and honestly very strange piece of evidence that has to do with the skin of a sheep's tail. The Mishnah says that if the priest has the intention to eat just a tiny piece, an olive bulk, of the skin of the sheep's tail on the next day, the entire offering becomes Piggul. Now, on the surface, that seems to fit our wrong time rule perfectly, right? But there is a massive problem just hiding in plain sight.
Hang on a second. The fat tail of a sheep offering, skin and all, was actually a special portion that was burned entirely on the altar. It was considered food for the altar, not food for people. So what in the world is going on here?
And there it is. That's the logical contradiction at the heart of our case. The rule of Piggul, that big, bad penalty for a wrong time intention, it only applies to the parts of the offering that are meant to be eaten by humans. So how could an intention to eat something that was never supposed to be eaten by people in the first place even trigger Piggul? It just seems like a logical impossibility. This is where the Talmudic sages roll up their sleeves. Let's meet our three brilliant detectives, each one armed with a unique theory to crack this case wide open and restore logical consistency to the entire system of law. Our first detective on the scene is Shmuel. He takes one look at this contradiction and basically says, hey, maybe we're just using the wrong set of rules to analyze the evidence. Shmuel's theory is pretty slick. He says this specific law was probably written according to a minority opinion from a sage named Rabbi Eliezer. And in Rabbi Eliezer's view, you can create Piggul by intending to shift something from altar food to human food. It's a really neat solution. The law isn't contradictory at all. It's just following a different author's logic. Problem solved. All right, next up is our second detective, Rav Huna. He takes a totally different path. Instead of trying to change the rules, he decides to re-examine the evidence itself. Rav Huna's move is absolutely brilliant. He challenges the basic premise that we've all been working with. He argues that we were all wrong. The skin of the tail is not for the altar. He points to a verse in Leviticus that says to offer the fat tail, and he argues that this implies only the fat, not the skin. So if the skin is actually for people to eat, well, then the contradiction just vanishes into thin air. And now for our third detective, Rav Hizda. He comes in with this highly specific, very contextual solution. He thinks everyone is looking at the clue, but they're arguing about the wrong kind of animal entirely. So Rav Hizda proposes that the Mishnah isn't talking about a sheep at all. It's talking about a young goat, a kid. A kid's tail, you see, unlike a sheep's fatty tail, is not offered on the altar. It's eaten by the priests. So in that very specific case, the law makes perfect sense. Intending to eat a goat's tail skin at the wrong time? Yeah, that would absolutely create Piggul.
So there you have it, 3 brilliant solutions to the puzzle. But in the Talmud, no theory gets a free pass. Now comes the cross-examination, where each detective's idea is put under the microscope and challenged hard. This is where the debate really heats up. Let's break down this cross-examination. Each detective faces a tough line of questioning. Shmuel, he's confronted with another law that seems to conflict with his theory, but he just doubles down, saying, hey, the text simply has different authors. Rav Huna's theory gets challenged by long-standing tradition, but he holds firm, arguing the biblical verse is stronger evidence. And Rav Hista is told his whole explanation is unnecessary, but he defends it by revealing a subtle, new detail it teaches us about priestly meals. And just when you think it's all over, the court brings in a surprise piece of evidence. It's a teaching from the same time period as the Mishnah, but not included in it. It's called a Baraita, and it's about to drop some new information about that tail skin. Okay, so get this. This new text says that the tail skin is burned, but only for a specific kind of burnt offering. Now, this is a huge win for Rav Huna's case, because it implies that in our case, a peace offering, the skin would be eaten, just like he said. But this creates a new problem for Rav Hizda, because it kind of makes his whole theory about a young goat seem a little less necessary. So Rav Hizda, he's kind of cornered by this new evidence, but he offers 2 final defenses. And the second one is, honestly, it's pretty audacious. He suggests that to preserve the logical consistency of the entire system, maybe we should just amend the text of the new evidence to fit his theory. This just shows how far these thinkers would go to make sure the entire legal system was perfectly, flawlessly coherent. So after all that incredible debate, what's the real takeaway here? I mean, who was right? Let's zoom out for a second and see what this whole intellectual exercise actually shows us. You know, the amazing thing about the Talmud is that the debate often ends without actually declaring a winner. The ultimate goal isn't just to find the correct solution to the curious case of the tail skin. The real point is the process itself. It's this intense, creative, and absolutely relentless effort to make sure every single law in the system is logically consistent with every other law. This whole detective story really reveals the core values of this way of thinking. First, it starts with an absolute commitment to unifying the text, a deep belief that it all comes from a single, coherent source. Second, it relies on precedent, using ancient texts as solid, unshakable evidence. And finally, it demands just incredible intellectual creativity to explore every single possibility, no matter how wild, to resolve a contradiction. And that really leaves us with a final thought to chew on. This isn't just about ancient rituals or obscure laws. It's a model for a whole system of thought. It forces us to ask, what does it really look like? What does it truly mean to build an entire worldview on the unwavering belief that it must all somehow make perfect logical sense?